Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Chile, Kamaru Usman versus Damian Maia. And Shaq, Kamaru Usman finally gets a chance to prove that he's a top 5 guy.
Yeah, man, he's gotta live up to what Tyron and Kobe have done their last two fights. I mean, those guys went out there and smashed Maia easily, so he's got to live up to those guys. He has pretty much taken care of business handily in every one of his fights, and he is a top 6 guy, so now he gets to go out there and prove it.
But what I want to know, Shaq, is he going to use more than 30% for this one?
You know, his 30% does put 100% of us to sleep, and I mean, you know, he is a boring fighter, but he gets the job done, so we'll give him his credit, and, you know, he does handle these guys very handily, but don't sleep on Damian. Damian's one of the best of all time, most wins in welterweight division history, and one mistake with Damian, tap.
I think people forget that, you know, Damian's like the human backpack. You know, he takes 2 tough losses against the champ and the potential future champ. And now all of a sudden he's a plus 450 underdog, which is a spot we haven't seen him in maybe ever, if not years.
Yeah, man, you know, this is the type of hype Kamaru Usman has, and his performances, you know, have showed it. Granted, you know, they are boring, but hey, they're dominant 30-26, 30-25s. I mean, he's wiped out pretty much everyone he's fought.
Yeah, this is very true. And, you know, for the fans, obviously we mentioned that MaxBet season continues this weekend. For those that missed it, the recap show, 2 MaxBet winners at UFC 224, Jack Hermanson at minus 135 odds, Marcus Maluco Perez at minus 200. Like we said on the recap show, you know it's a max bet when your worst case scenario still wins the fight, Shaq.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Now we go down to Santiago, Chile. MaxBet season is in full effect again, and you know what time it is when we say MaxBet season. It's time to get that money out. It's time to capitalize on these opportunities. It's time to stop hesitating and asking questions if Best Fight Picks is the real deal or not. We're men of our words. We get the job done, and it's time to sign up.
And when I tell you to MaxBet Jack Hermanson, don't come back at me and say, wait, I'd rather MaxBet Junior Albini. When we say MaxBet Jack Hermanson, that means Jack Hermanson. And this weekend when we tell you what to play, just go ahead and play it. And we're still offering the same promotion. Buy this one event VIP, and if it doesn't profit, get the next 2 free. So tell us who's doing better offers than that. And let's do this whole card start to finish, Shaq. First up in the lightweight division, we got Felipe Silva. He's minus 300. The comeback on Claudio Puelles is plus 250. Now, Shaq, both these guys got stopped in their last fights. Felipe in the first round against Taisumov. Claudio got stopped by Martin Bravo. Now they meet in the curtain jerker, the first fight of the night. I have a feeling this one's not going the distance. Who you got?
Yeah, you know, I like Felipe Silva in this one. I think Claudio's a young kid. I think he's inexperienced, even though he did make it to the Ultimate Fighter finale. I mean, I thought that was one of the worst seasons of Tough they've ever had. I mean, that talent level from that area was kind of low in my opinion. I mean, he was winning fights by leg lock in his second fight in the Tough House. I mean, that's just not the type of stuff that's going to fly around in the UFC. I think he, you know, at 20 years old, and the way he got starched by Martin Bravo, you know, a kid in his spot, you know, he kind of did have to take 2 years off and train just to catch up, but he's so far behind, man. And now he's fighting a Brazilian killer who's got 48 Muay Thai fights. Now, granted, that Brazilian killer, you know, he's probably taken a lot of damage in his career. You know, he is on the tail end, but just a difference in tenacity, a difference in mindset. It's like a shark versus a guppy, you know. So I think Felipe will stalk him. And, you know, at some point, Claudio will fill these shots. I mean, he did get finished by a body shot, and one thing Felipe Silva likes to do is finish to the body. So I'm going to take Felipe Silva here by first round TKO. I think it's going to be a complete butchering. Claudio will be back, but he's just not ready for this level yet.
You know, Felipe Silva is a guy that trains with Zaleski every single day, and he has a very similar style. And that style is to go to war right away, to attack you, to break you, to see what you're all about. And, you know, if he senses that you start to slow down a little bit, that's when he turns up that intensity. I wouldn't hold that Taisumov KO loss against him because, I mean, look, Taisumov has nukes in his hands. You know, Taisumov would launch Claudio Puelles into the 15th row. So, you know, I don't really hold that against him. And plus, it was only one punch. He didn't take any follow-ups. He didn't take too much damage. Just one little skull touch, one little, face hitting the canvas first, and it was what it was. But now he's taking on Claudio Puelles, step down in competition. Like you said, Puelles has taken 2 years off, so I'm sure he's improved, but there's certain things that remain the same, and it seemed like if you pressure the kid, he can break. Felipe is the type to pressure. I think he's 3-1 for a reason, so I'm going to go with Felipe Silva here. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got Frankie Saenz. He's minus 320. The comeback on Henry Boure Briones is plus 260. Now, I've noticed a lot of people have been talking about this line, They're surprised Frankie Saenz is minus 320. And honestly, I agree with them. I'm kind of surprised too because if we're being honest, he's lost 4 fights in a row. Between you and me, he lost to Merab Dvalishvili. He got taken down 11 times. He lost that fight. He's on a 4-fight skid. If you want to be honest, he's on a 5-fight skid because he lost to Serwan Kakai too. So now I got to know, does my boy Henry Boure get back on track here?
Yeah, you do make some good points. Saenz, is an old man. He's 38 years old. We know 38-year-old bantamweights don't do well, but the thing is he's also fighting a fellow 38-year-old bantamweight who consistently gets blown out the water when he steps into the UFC. The difference is here, Frankie's fighting Augusto Mendez's and the Merabs, low-level, older guys is where Henry's fighting the Cody Garbranches, the Douglas D. Silvas, and the Hani Yayas. Those guys, go look at Douglas D. Silva's record. He's got a boxing record, and
he's got a similar record than my boy Tractor Prazeres.
He's like 24-2, so he wins a lot of fights, and Hani Yaya is like 9-3 in the UFC, so Henry is supposed to get blown out in those fights. So this line is way off, in my opinion. Frankie Saenz should never be at this line. The thing with Henry is the guy's not a consistent performer. At least when Frankie Saenz, is in these fights, he does a little something here and there. He can at least get to split decision. Henry just gets blown out the water. The line is off, but to say, if you want to take the shot, the value is definitely on Henry. It's a 100% dog or pass situation. I think Frankie's going to edge out a split decision. I think it'll be close, but I'll take Frankie Saenz, but dog or pass.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one to call. Obviously, the D1 background for Frankie Saenz gives me pause picking a guy like Boure Briones, but at the same time, when we talk D1, this dude's 40 years old and he ain't moving. That entry ain't the same as it used to be. Let's just put it that way, Shaq. And, we are in South America. It's a coin flip. So I'm going to go with Henry Boure Briones here.
There's different types of D1 wrestling. We have the John Moraga type of D1 wrestling, and then we have the Colby Covington type of D1 wrestling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with that. We got the Pat Cummings D1 wrestling.
We got the Jim Miller D1 wrestling, or you know what I'm saying? It's different types of wrestling.
Yeah, you're right. It should be a fun fight while it lasts. Enjoy it. But speaking of fun fights, this one is for real a fun fight, and there's no 40-year-olds involved because we got Enrique El Fuerte Barzola. He's minus 195. The comeback on Brandon Killer B. Davis is plus 160. Now, all I got to say is, shout out to my boy Ben Saunders, but I think we got a new Killer B in the UFC, Shaq.
Yeah, Brandon Davis is no slouch. I feel like this fight has the potential to be fight of the night. We got a hillbilly from Mississippi and a Peruvian warrior. And Enrique, the guy is a consistent winner inside the octagon. He knows how to get his job done. He mixes it up very well. You saw those stand-up exchanges against Mowgli Benitez. He held his own, even though he did get cracked with some shots. You saw him dump Benitez repetitively. And we know the hole in Brandon Davis's game is not necessarily the takedown defense, but just getting tied up. That's how he lost to Bochniak. He got stalled out. And, I feel like if Enrique uses a similar game plan, I think he's going to scrape out a decision. But if he plays around on the feet trying to, get a finish in this environment, this Chilean environment, striking with Brandon Davis is not necessarily the smartest idea. Even though he does get hit with some shots, the guy throws 5-6 punch combinations deep into the fight. He can throw punches all day. The weakness in his game is the in-between phases, the tie-ups. That's what he's allergic to. He doesn't want to get laid on. He doesn't want to get clinched. So, therefore, I'm going to go with Enrique. But I think it's going to be a very close fight, actually. I think Davis is going to have some moments, and I wouldn't be shocked if he pulled it out. But I think it's a case where Davis might have to finish Enrique to win this fight. I think Enrique, if he fights like a pussy, if he fights smart, hugs his legs, does what El Fuerte does, I think he's going to scrape out a decision.
I got to give a lot of credit to Enrique El Fuerte Barzola because anytime that you get, what is he, 4-1 in the UFC now? When you put up numbers like that, when you're a consistent winner, he should be 5-0 because between you and me, I think we can say he won that Bochniak fight. It was close, but I had that personally for Enrique Barzola. So the guy is a total winner, and we were talking earlier about how, the talent level of that last season of The Ultimate Fighter Latino America wasn't the best, and the same thing can be said for Enrique's season. The best season of The Ultimate Fighter Latino America was the first season because you got guys like Alejandro, you got guys like Teco, Gabriel Benitez, Chito Vera, all these guys. But with the second and third season, you only get the winners are the only guys that made it to the UFC, and that's what you see with Enrique Barzola. But he's been going out here. That training at ATT's been paying off. He knows how to mix in those takedowns at the end of rounds and win fights. But I'll tell you what, this kid Brandon Davis is no slouch at all. He's very, very slick standing up. He's got a nice volume style. He can slip and rip. He can hand fight. He can parry. Got shades of Zaleski, shades of Tim Means. Super exciting guy. All comes down to where this fight takes place, because I do think Brandon Davis has an edge standing. It's just about don't get stalled out, don't get taken down, don't get tied up against the fence, and hopefully he's learned his lessons from his UFC debut, and he can apply that here. And if he does, I think he can come out here and get an upset. So I'm going to go with Brandon Davis for, I think the plus 160 dog's going to come through. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got Gabriel Mowgli Benitez. He's minus 210. The comeback on Humberto Bandenay is plus 175. Now, both these guys are coming off the best performances of their career. Gabriel Benitez put on an absolute clinic against Jason Knight. Humberto Bandenay starched Martin Bravo in under 20 seconds. Now they meet in South America in the UFC's Octagon, and it actually opened a pick'em, but now it's minus 210, Gabriel, and plus 175 Humberto. So which way you going?
Yeah, prior to Humberto's debut, I actually picked him in that fight against Martin Bravo because, like we said, I thought Martin Bravo's season itself was very low level. I think the talent level was poor. And, Humberto was able to pull that out. He landed some left kicks, and Martin ducked into one, and Martin went down, so props to him. But now we're about to see where he's really at, because Gabriel Benitez is the definition of a professional. He's paid his dues along the way. He's experienced everything it is to experience inside the Octagon, and Humberto Bandenay hasn't. He's only been in the Octagon for less than a minute, you know what I'm saying? And we know when that real UFC fight settles in and these young kids get in there against these vets, a fringe top 25 guy like Mowgli Benitez, who did just beat Jason Knight in his last fight, who was number 15 now, one would counter me, Jason Knight's done, he's got CTE, this and that, but Gabriel treated him exactly the way he's supposed to treat him. He treated Sam Cecilia the exact way you're supposed to treat him.
He gave him more CTE.
You know what I'm saying? So he does his job in there. He consistently does his job. Granted, he's got a couple losses, but he's still getting, even though he lost Enrique, I thought he made improvements from the last fight. You know what I'm saying? So I think he's making improvements fight to fight. I don't think Humberto's ready for this. I think the person he was supposed to fight, Steven Peterson, would have been, a better test, but I think he needs a couple fights before he fights a guy like Mowgli Benitez. I think once his fight clears the 2-3 minute mark, hits that fatigue state, I think you're just going to see the experience, take Gabriel a long way in this fight. The thing that's going to separate them is the boxing. I think the calf kicks are going to add up as well. And I think Gabriel just knows how to respond better when the fight gets tough. And I'm going to take Gabriel by a handed decision here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting match, and I was very surprised that Sean Shelby actually put Humberto Bandenay in there with Gabriel Benitez. I felt like he should have taken a couple steps up the ladder before he fought a guy like Gabriel. I mean, you're coming off a win over Martin Bravo. Let's take it easy a little bit. But they wanted to rush him, and when you get rushed, it might be time for that vet lesson, because, I mean, a year or two ago, we saw Humberto Bandenay tapping the forearm chokes, stuff that's not even locked in on the regional scene. And, he's had a couple highlight reel knockouts. He's got a nice left kick. He's 6'1" at featherweight. He's a big kid. But he's taking on a kid now in Gabriel who's got over 25 pro fights. I mean, Gabriel is a consummate professional. And even though he's been, win-loss inside the UFC's Octagon, I mean, look who he's been up against. Guys like Andre Fili. I know people like to make fun of Fili, but look, Fili is a top 25 guy right now on the planet. So, Humberto has never experienced anything like this. And if he can rise to the occasion and beat Gabriel, then maybe he really is the next top prospect. But I personally don't think so. I think he's going to get humbled here, and he'll come back and he'll be better after this. So I got Gabriel via either unanimous decision or late TKO. And next up in the women's strawweight division, we got Poliana Botello. She's minus 170. The comeback on Suri Kondo is plus 150.
Yeah, it's a good fight. I think both girls have potential. I think the loser will still go on to win a lot of fights. Botello trains at Nova União, and you guys have heard me say in the past that the Nova União style will prevail in the female game. But I like Kondo's game, man. Even though, she is a little stiff, she is, I think, at a speed disadvantage against Patella. I like her volume style. We're talking about a girl that landed 10 strikes a minute in her debut. And I mean, she non-stop worked for 15 minutes. Now, the thing that I have a suspicion on, I think Patella is probably, a lot faster. She is a Brazilian wrestling champion. I think, what's the common thing in the Nova and Yao fighters? What's their weakness? The cardio. I think a muscular girl like her, I think with the volume style of Kondo, I think Patella might possibly gas out. So I'm actually going to take Kondo in this fight. I think she's going to cash as a plus 150 underdog. I think Patella will go on to have a great future. She has been stopped before against my girl Viviani, who's fighting my girl Yan Zhaonan, by the way. And I think Kondo's going to win a decision here, a close decision, just by out-voluming her. I think it's going to be a close fight, 1-1 going into that third round, and I think the cardio and the volume style will edge out a decision for Kondo.
Yeah, you bring up some great points, man. But speaking of great points and great fights, we got Alexandre Pantoja. He's minus 125. The comeback on Brandon Moreno is plus 105. Now, for those that don't know, this is a rematch. They did fight on The Ultimate Fighter. Now, a lot of people have a misconception that Brandon Moreno was whooping on Alexandre Pantoja, and then he got caught. We don't see it that way. I thought it was a systematic dismantling on Alexandre's part. He went out there and he choked out Brandon Moreno in the second round after giving him a vet lesson. Now they meet in the UFC for real. Now this is going to count on their records. This ain't an exhibition match anymore. Who do you think's improved the most since their first fight on Tough, man?
Man, both guys are top 10 in my opinion. No slouches at all. And by the way, Pantoja beat the living shit out of him in that Tough House. And he landed a couple punches. That's what Pantoja does. That's why they call him the cannibal. He likes to eat punches and keep moving forward.
He landed a couple punches in a fist fight? Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Unheard of.
That's what he does. I think Moreno has actually made more improvements since the Tough Show. I think Moreno was a young kid on that Tough Show, and I think Pantoja was more of a finished product. Pantoja's got more combat experience. Pantoja's serious. His last fight against Ortiz, Pantoja has a bad habit of taking the back a little bit too early, and then with a minute left, guys like Ortiz will turn into his guard and he'd lose position. He did the same thing against Eric Shelton. He's also one of these guys that in terms of going to, all his losses are by decision, by the way. In terms of fight IQ, he makes some questionable choices in there. Guys will be shooting on him and he'll go for a guillotine and go to his back. Now, if he doesn't get the guillotine, he just lost position. Now we're down on points, So I think Moreno does have good stall tactics. I think Moreno's a better puncher. The tougher guy, I think, is Pantoja. But in terms of winning a decision, I think Moreno's actually better at winning decisions at this point. And Ortiz straight up stalled Pantoja. I thought Pantoja literally gave that fight away, man. I think he put his hands up when Ortiz was hugging his legs and complaining to the ref to separate him. And, you can't do that in this game, man. You're going to fall behind on points and lose decisions. So I'm actually going to take Moreno by controversial or, a close decision. I think it's going to be super close. It wouldn't shock me if Pantoja won the decision by out-positioning him just because I think he does have the better jiu-jitsu. But I think Moreno has the better wrestling. So I'm going to take Moreno.
Man, such a good fight. And so far, I've been pretty spot on with the Brandon Moreno fights. Started off with Louis Smolka, and I thought Smolka was going to win, but he was minus 400, so I bet the under 1.5. Brandon comes out there, cashes the under 1.5. Then I was like, okay, this kid's legit. I bet him as a plus 150, plus 160 dog against Dustin Ortiz. Took care of him. And then, in his last fight against Sergio Pettis, we both bet Sergio Pettis big in that spot at dog money, and we saw that Brandon wasn't ready for a top 5 guy yet. But now he gets to rematch Alexandre Pantoja. And look, I feel like Pantoja, he was the finished he was the more complete product when they fought the first time, and I feel like he's that way now the second time as well. Because we saw in Brandon Moreno's last fight against Sergio Pettis, yeah, he was able to take the back. He was able to do a couple of things. But when they were standing, man, I mean, he looked super green to me, some of those techniques he was doing. Granted, when you're in there against Sergio can make you look stupid, but he did make him look stupid. That's exactly what happened. And I don't exactly think that Brandon Moreno is going to be taking the back consistently of a guy like Alexandre Pantoja. I just simply think this is a bad matchup for him. So I'm going to go with Alexandre, the Cannibal Pantoja here. I think he's going to come through as a slight favorite and once again beat Brandon Moreno. Now, here's the people's main event. Next up in the welterweight division, we got Zach Cummings. He's minus 135. The comeback on Michel Tractor Prazeres is plus 115. Now, I know you remember what happened last time we tried to fade my boy Tractor, and it didn't quite work out. Didn't work out a couple of years ago either for me when I bet on Valmir Lazaro. Now they're forcing him to go up a weight class to 170 pounds. He's taking on one of the bigger welterweights, a guy in Zach Cummings, who also is known for missing weight. So you think this is going to be a little bit of a punishment here, or you think my boy Tractor is going to come in 178.5 pounds?
I think Tractor will make weight. I think things really haven't changed with Tractor. Oh, he beat Des Green. All of a sudden, he's a world champion. Cummings, he's super underrated. Cummings is one of these guys that I've referred to repeatedly on the show. You watch him on tape and you think, oh, this guy sucks, but when you get in there with him, it's a completely different story. He's been the underdog several times. Plus 330 against Jan Cabral, underdog to Nicholas Dalby when he was undefeated. Goes 3 hard rounds with Santiago Ponzinibbio, and honestly, he did better than a lot of people did against Santiago. He was the only guy to not get wobbled or drop against Santiago. That shows me the proof in his chin. And, he's been subbed in the past, but, he got subbed by a jiu-jitsu black belt 5 years ago, you know what I'm saying? Tractor Prazeres, I think he, at 170 is just a big size difference. I think he's too small. I think Cummings weighs 220 pounds outside of fighting, you know what I'm saying? And I think if he thinks that he's going to take down Cummings, I think he's got another thing coming. I think when they tie up, it's going to be a completely different. I mean, we see what happens when guys are shooting on Cummings. He shrugs them off with ease because he's so big. He's the guy that misses weight at 170. So I'm going to take Cummings here. I think it's a power difference. Tractor might be a little faster early, but the longer the fight goes and that pressure that Cummings puts on his opponents, Cummings never stays out the fight. He never backs down. And I got Zach Cummings, I'm going to say by late finish, actually.
Well, I know a lot of people heard all the shit I talked about my boy Tractor a couple months back when Des Green fought him, and we know the situation with the weight and coming in 183 pounds for an 155-pound fight. It was what it was, but eventually I got to learn my lesson, man, and how can I keep fading this guy when he wins every single fight? You know what I mean? He's 24-2. The guy's an absolute winner, and I'm sure he's going to do some of the shit that we expected him to do last time, and he's going to flop to his back. He's going to gas out, but all that being said, the dude finds a way to win, regardless of what he does. So it's really hard for me to pick against him. I hope Zach Cummings comes out here and punishes him and teaches him a lesson for, the shit he pulled last time. And also, don't forget, he's missed weight in 3 of his last 4 fights. So that Des Green fight wasn't the first time it's happened. I'll never forget when I got robbed in that Valmir Lazaro fight. That was absolutely disgusting. I'm going to go with Michel Tractor Prazeres via 29-28 decision here. But hopefully you guys that bet Cummings win, because, it'd be nice to teach my boy Tractor a lesson here. You know what I'm saying, Shaq? Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got Vicente Luque. He's minus 200. The comeback on Chad Laprise is plus 170. Now, this is an interesting fight, man. Chad Laprise had success since he moved up to 170 pounds. Good volume style. Vicente Luque, we know if he connects on that chin, he puts guys down. He's huge for the weight class. Which way are you leaning?
Yeah, it's a great fight. I think this is one of the more closer fights on the card, actually, even though Vicente is a 2-1 favorite. Vicente's been doing his thing. He beat Nico Price. He knocked out Bilal Muhammad. I mean, he generally takes care of business. The only hiccup was to Leon Edwards, and we see how Leon's doing these days. Chad Laprise, I actually think he did need to move up to 170 because if you go to YouTube and type in his weigh-in against Thibaut Gotti, you'll see that his lips were completely chapped and his eyes had red bags under him, and he was completely out of it. I think he actually did have to move up a weight class. I think his chin's holding up a lot better. I mean, at 55, this guy he gassed out in the 3rd round against Barberena and got teed off on. We know the type of pace that Barberena pushes. When he fought Tractor, people thought he had a bad chin. But, I mean, hey, he's a young kid, undefeated. Oh, he lost to Tractor. He's done now. He lost to Ross Pearson, but that was the same Ross Pearson that beat Paul Felder a fight before that. So I think Chad Laprise is actually going to see better days at 170 like he's been doing. Vicente Luque is serious. The thing with Vicente is I think Laprise has a cardio advantage in this fight. I think I could totally see a case of where, Vicente might hurt him early and then, go for the kill and not get the kill, because I think Laprise's chin is actually good, to be honest. And I think Laprise the cleaner striker. Laprise the guy that knows how to fight moving sideways, backward, forwards. I think his movement's better. I think his angles are better. I think his hands are better. Now, Vicente hits harder, but what happens if he doesn't knock him out? I think if he gets into a point battle with Laprise, I think that favors Laprise in my opinion. So I'm going to take Chad Laprise. I think he's going to win a split decision, 29-28. I think Vicente will probably wobble him a couple times. This is going to be the first time we're really going to see what Laprise's chin is. He's been fighting, Bufondo's, but Bufondo's a serious power striker with a blitz, and I mean he ate that shot fine when I don't know a lot of other guys could. So I'm gonna take Laprise for the upset here.
Yeah, I think you're right about certain things. I think you're right when you say that Vicente Luque is gonna rock Chad Laprise. However, I don't think Laprise is gonna be able to recover, man. I think now we're gonna find out that my boy Chad Laprise should have stayed at 155 pounds the whole time because he's simply too small to be taking on a guy like Vicente Luque. I think he's going to eat a left hook and go down, and if he doesn't, I think that anaconda choke, that Darce, I think that'll be a nice little backup plan for Vicente Luque. And you do bring up good points because Chad does have the better cardio, and if this turns into a 3-round point battle, I could see him winning that. But Vicente is so experienced. I mean, this is a guy that knocked out Thiago Marreta Santos on the regional scene, and he's only 26 years old. He's just a kid. So I think that Vicente has got the more upside in this spot, and I actually see him coming out here and stopping Chad Laprise. So I'm going to go with Vicente Luque for the victory here. Now, next up in the women's flyweight division, we got Andrea Lee. She's minus 300. The comeback on Veronica Macedo is plus 250. You want to make it short and sweet, Shaq?
Yeah, I just think, there'll be a time to fade Lee, but I don't think the time's now. I'll take Lee by decision.
Yeah, look, I mean, we all saw that fight Lee had on Access TV where she was a minus 1,000 favorite, and I thought she lost the fight, but, she came away with the robbery win. I think my girl Veronica Macedo might be a little bit too small for the weight class. She's got nice spins. Andrea Lee is way too hyped up, and we will definitely fade her soon. It'd be nice to see Veronica come out here and get this upset. Most likely Lee gets it done, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got Diego Pitbull Rivas. He's minus 165. The comeback on Guido Cannetti is plus 145. Now, Diego Rivas, the only Chilean fighting in Chile, taking on the Argentine Guido Cannetti. These two were roommates and castmates and teammates on the first season of Tough Latino America, the best season there's ever been of Tough Latino America. They're very familiar with each other. Now they meet in Chile. Very closely lined fight. Who you got?
Yeah, I really don't see too much change in Guido Cannetti. I actually thought the line would be a little wider. I know Rivas is coming off cancer, so that's making everyone a little spectacle. But, he went 3 rounds with Jose Teco Quinones. I think the issue is the lack of respect for Jose Teco Quinones. A lot of people don't realize Jose Teco Quinones, as you've heard on the past on the show, is one of these guys that's going to be winning a lot of fights down the line. The guy doesn't try to knock people out. He tries to tip and run and win decisions. There's not going to be a lot of openings against that guy. Now, when you're fighting Guido Cannetti, let me just bring up this guy's past. He lost to Marco Beltran on Tough, whether you say it was a robbery or not. Even if he dominated the second round, but he still lost. Then, he goes in there against Alejandro Perez, and he's swinging wildly out of control, leaving his chin wide up in the air. He gets countered, knocked out, and that was when he was 34 years old. Then he fights Henry Briones, a stiff, slow, a guy who's the same age as him, a little more chinny, a guy that's going to stand right in front of him. And this so-called Guido Cannetti power couldn't knock Henry Briones out, and Henry Briones has been blown out the water in pretty much the rest of his fights. But Henry knocked him out and submitted, and let me not even talk about the tap. Go back and watch. It was one of the fastest taps I've ever seen in my entire life. So, things are showing me fights are, his mistakes aren't changing fight to fight. Then he fought Hugo Viana, who, by the way, go back and watch him fight Aljamain. He got his head smashed into the mat, and directly after that fight, he fought a 3-3 guy and lost when he was minus 1,000 again. I just think the line maker was a complete joke when he fought Hugo Viana and Hugo fought Zach Riley. So, I think people are valuing Guido Cannetti here. I think he's a habitual loser. I think he's one of these one bad spot guys. And my one bad spot guys, those are the Sarah McMahons, those are the Misha Serkinovs. You put these guys in one bad spot and they go home. You've seen him tap fast before. You've seen him go out stiff before. When the guy puts his right hand down and his lead leg forward, you know what I'm saying? Then that's how you know the fight's done. He landed a couple of punches on Kyung Ho. I don't think the punches were really that serious. Kyung Ho ate him fine. And then when Guido Cannetti hurts people, he goes for takedowns. That takedown takes out half his energy load right there. He's 38 years old. He can only maintain a pace for so long. His chin can only take, a certain amount of punches. I think Rivas is solid. The thing with Rivas here, people are devaluing him like they always do because, He's a fundamental fighter. He sticks to the basics. He's not going to do anything stupid. He's going to stay in his stance, and he's going to counter box. And I think eventually Guido Cannetti will leave an opening. I really don't think the storm's going to be that much. I think Diego Rivas is a defensively responsible fighter. He has solid shell tactics, and he doesn't really eat too many shots. I mean, if anyone can tell me a time where he's been, really hurt on the feet, I'd really like to know. Oh, he lost to Mowgli Benitez at 145 when he was 21 years old, you know what I'm saying? And he lost to a top prospect. So I got Diego Rivas here all day. I think he finishes Guido Cannetti in the second or third round.
Yeah, look, my boy Guido Cannetti is ATA, allergic to adversity. I mean, I've never seen a quicker tap than the time he fought Bure Briones. And now he's 38 years old. We've seen him quit 4 years ago. We've seen him quit this year. So certain things don't change. And with Diego Rivas, I know there's not a lot of confidence in him because he went out there and lost to Teco, and it seemed like he had a pulling the trigger issue. But the thing with that is, when you're fighting Teco Quinones and Teco leaves absolutely zero openings, of course you're going to have a pulling the trigger issue. But when you're going up against someone like Guido Cannetti, who does not have the movement or the feints of a Teco Quinones, Guido Cannetti is going to go out there and try to take his head off. He's going to try to decapitate him. He's going to try to blitz him. Going to try to make it a real brawl because we know that's how the Argentine fights. That's going to leave the openings for Diego Rivas. Maybe it's a left hook, maybe it's a slip right, maybe an uppercut. That'll let Diego Rivas counter Guido Cannetti and put him down. So I do have the Chilean. I do think Diego Rivas has the historic moment at home. He overcame cancer. People are blowing this whole cancer thing out of proportion. The minus 700 favorite in the next fight, Tatiana Suarez, also is a cancer survivor, so I don't see why people hold it against Diego Rivas, but they don't hold it against Tatiana Suarez. I mean, to me, if anything, it shows that he's super mentally strong. He can overcome an even bigger fight outside of the cage. Now he's coming back in the cage in his home country. I think this is a super big deal for him. They got commercials for Diego Rivas in Chile. And now, the habitual loser, Guido Cannetti's got to come out here and find a way to lose because that's what he's good at. Guido Cannetti is an expert at finding a way to lose. And somewhere along the way, around that 4-minute mark of the first round, once that right hand starts coming down, that's when the opportunity will present itself for Diego Rivas to finish the fight. So I do have the Chilean, Diego Rivas by knockout. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got Dominick Reyes. He's minus 250. The comeback on Jared Cannonier is plus 210. Now, it's interesting, man, because Jared Cannonier is the more experienced guy in the UFC, but Dominick Reyes, he's the hot prospect. He's the guy they're trying to move along. And now I want to know firsthand from Shaq, is Dominick Reyes the real deal?
I think it's not a matter if he's the real deal or not. It's a matter, what's in front of him. Jared Cannonier, at one point he had a lot of hype. I think finally the people have realized the potential has run out. He's 34, 35 years old. He's the finished product. He is what he is. What's Jared Cannonier's takedown defense?
22% or something.
22%. And what does Jared Cannonier's game consist of?
Swinging big bombs.
Swinging big bombs. I think that's a pretty easy style to game plan for. Everyone knows the deal with Jared Cannonier. He wants to take your head off. Now, when he gets these young kids like Jan Kudalaba who have questionable cardio, I think Dominick Reyes has his head on his shoulders a little more than Jan. I think he's smart. I've heard him reference. He knows the deal with Cannonier. He doesn't. It's quite obvious. Of course, he wants to take his head off. I think it's going to be simpler. I think he's going to hug his legs, tie him up, try to take his back, stall him out a little bit, win 2 rounds. Maybe he might gas out in the third, have how these young guys have to at least go through some type of adversity. Cannonier might try to, because Cannonier does have good cardio. He's one of these big guys that actually does have good cardio. So, the third round might be a little hairy, but I got to go with Reyes here. I think Cannonier, he might be on his way out, man. I've heard some interviews where, he's saying Jan Blachowicz ran away from him and he's tired of guys hugging his leg. Hey, if you want to win fights in the UFC, you got to know those in-between phases. So I think Cannonier is easy to game plan for. He struggles to stuff takedowns. I think Reyes can take this on points.
Yeah, Jared Cannonier is one of those guys that he does the interview and he does the whole, I want to fight someone that's not going to run away from me. I want to fight someone that's not going to lay on me. When you say stuff like that in your interviews, you know that you're probably not going to win a lot of fights because if you want to be good at this whole MMA fighting thing, if you want to be good in that UFC, Shaq, you better be able to deal with the guys that want to run away from you, deal with the guys that want to lay on you, and not be that guy that complains, oh, he didn't want to stand toe-to-toe with me in the center of the octagon. Well, do you want to win the fight or not? So that being said, I think Dominick Reyes is the more intelligent fighter, and I think he will duck under. I think he will take down Jared Cannonier, and he will submit him. So I'm going to go with Dominick Reyes, and I think we do have a prospect in the light heavyweight division. And also, Jared Cannonier is always talking about going to 185 in his interviews. You know when these dudes talk about dropping a weight class, yeah, it's not a good look. So I got Dominick Reyes here for sure. And next up, the co-main event of the evening, we got Tatiana Suarez. She's minus 700. The comeback on Alexa Grasso is plus 500. Now, a lot of people are perplexed by this line, minus 700 to plus 500, because they've never seen a plus 500 next to Alexa Grasso's name. But when you look at the kind of performances that Tatiana's been putting up, I mean, she goes out there and she fights like a minus 700 favorite. Now the question is she going to do that here?
You know, Tatiana's serious, man. You know, these girls, you know, they sprawl out all the way and they still get taken down. You know what I'm saying? At first, I was under the assumption that these girls that she was fighting just weren't good. But when she handled Viviani, who was 13-0, all right, I was like, man, I guess the wrestling is too much. You know, Grasso's clearly the better striker. But the thing is, I think Tatiana's just a different level that these girls are used to in the clinch and in wrestling. And Grasso's been taken down in every UFC fight. She got taken down by Clark. She got taken down by Marcos. She got taken down by Felice easily. And I don't think it'll be any different. I do think the line's off just because, I mean, if Grasso could somehow keep this up, she is the better puncher. But Tati's getting better at her movement. She's getting better at her game. She knows where her skills lie. I think she's going to grab a leg and go to work. I think she's going to win a decision here. Even though the line's off doesn't mean you should take the shot.
Yeah, I agree, man. You know, I was simply wrong about Tatiana in our last fight. You know, just because something looks ugly doesn't mean that it's not effective. And she's super effective because, you know, like we were talking about on past episodes when we talk about girls like Priscilla Cachoeira and who's the other girl that hits hard, Mackenzie Dern. You know, it might look super ugly, but when they connect on that chin, you know, girls have never been punched like that. And conversely, when Tatiana ties up with these girls, they've never felt any kind of pressure or strength like that before in their lives. So they get taken down, they get laid on, and they get submitted. So much respect to Grasso. It would be cool to see her come out here, win as a plus 500 dog. You know, I'd love to see that. I'm always rooting for the underdog, unless I got a bet on the favorite, Shaq. But look, man, I think the size is too much. I think the wrestling, I think she's going to come out here, take her down at will. Whether it's a 30-27 or a submission along the way, we'll find out. But I think she's minus 700 for a reason. So I got Tatiana Suarez. Kamaru Usman. He's minus 655. The comeback on Damian Maia is plus 465. Now, not often you see a line like this next to Damian Maia's name. He is coming off 2 straight losses. Kamaru Usman is making a name for himself. A lot of big wins already. You think Kamaru is going to take the next step in his career and solidify the fact that he is indeed a top 5 guy right now?
Yeah, you know, I've always, ever since before Maia was fighting Colby, I came to the conclusion that Maia is not going to beat any really good wrestlers, and now he's fighting, you know, he's fighting the 3 best wrestlers in the division: T. Wood, Colby, and now Kamaru. You know, I just don't see him taking Kamaru down. I just feel like it's going to be a physicality difference. You know, arguably, I think Maia might be coming in here for paychecks at this point with the last hellacious beating he took. Well, the last 2 hellacious beatings he's took. I think he might be coming in here for a paycheck. I got Kamaru in this one. I think he's just too physical. I think at some point, you know, it might be a little hairy early, but just the size and the will, the more you lean on Damian, the more you let him know that you're not that he's not taking you down, he breaks, and I think Kamaru will beat his ass.
Yeah, one thing I like about Kamaru is that he's got cardio for days, man, and he's always so physical in there, and the way he walks these guys down, he stays in their face for the duration of the 3 rounds. Now it's going to be 5 rounds. And look, I mean, you can't give up your back to a guy like Damian Maia. I mean, you can't play half guard with a guy like Damian Maia. Still to this day, you do those things, and that's a recipe for losing. But I do think that Kamaru Usman is an intelligent guy. I do think he's got fight IQ. I do think he has strategy. I do think he game plans. And game planning for a guy like Maia, it's been done before. It's going to be done again. We know Damian Maia historically has a very suspect gas tank. Kamaru's got an incredible gas tank. The first round is going to be the most interesting because we know that's when Kamaru likes to come out slow. He does get tagged a lot in a lot of his fights. I know Worley wobbled him a couple times. This is different here with Maia. So Maia's going to maybe have a little bit of success in the first couple minutes of the fight, but the longer it goes, the more it favors Kamaru. And I got Kamaru coming out here and possibly finishing Damian Maia, Shaq. So It's going to be interesting. Well, Shaq, before we hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute, last week, 2 max bets cashed. This weekend, got another max bet for sale. They go to bestfightpicks.com, sign up to the VIP package today, and let's get the job done again this weekend.
Alert, alert, max bet season going down there in Santiago, Chile. Join the ride as we take over. Like we said, when it's max bet season, it's time to stop hesitating, guys. I want you to look yourself in the mirror and say, max bet season gets the job done every single time.
Literally, and there's no exaggeration because we've never had a consensus max bet lose. And that's just facts. So sign up today, bestfightpicks.com. Let's hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is Big Marley himself. Kyle, how's it going, man?
Hey, not bad. Looking forward to some fights. Got some high-priced fights on this one, so it's going to be interesting to see some DraftKings lineups.
Yeah, and speaking of high price, I mean, Kamaru Usman's a -600 favorite, taking on Damian Maia at +450. Not often you see Maia at those odds. Do you think it's justified?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the only way Maia wins is by getting a sneaky submission, which he could do, but he's going to have to do it from the top. He's going to have to get Usman down, or he's going to have to backpack him, maybe get a submission standing, because there's no way he's going to win a striking fight with Usman. He's not going to knock out Usman. If anything, he's getting knocked out. So I like Usman here. The only problem is he's $9,500 on DraftKings, so he's going to have to score the most on the card. I can see him getting it done, so I'm going to have some of them, but I'm not going to be all in on him by any means. Maia might be a fade, maybe like a GPP punt, but yeah, pick here's Usman for sure.
Tatiana Suarez is -700. Alexa Grasso is +500. I know Tatiana has been incredible on DraftKings putting on these takedown clinics. What I really got to know is, will she score more with a first-round submission, or will she score more with a 3-round domination and a bunch of takedowns?
I don't know. She's one of the few fighters who has the chance to score more with the decision just because of all the takedowns. But yeah, she could get a first-round submission here, so she definitely has a high ceiling, so I'm for sure interested in her. But everyone's going to be interested in her. She's going to be the highest owned fighter on the card in GPP, so you're going to be competing with a lot of field when you have her in her lineup in your lineups. But I do think she's probably the safest pick. So I think she's a cash lock for sure. And if you're going to try and avoid her in GPPs. But I think you got to put her in cash, start your lineup there, and move on because she should get this done.
So I know Kyle Marley loves Brazilians in Brazil. Well, now we got the only Chilean in Chile, Diego Rivas. He's taking on Guido Cannetti. We know Guido Cannetti loves finding a way to lose. You think that trend will continue here?
It is in Chile, so that's making me like Rivas more than if it wasn't in Chile. So yeah, he's going to be my pick here. The issue is he's $8,600, and I just like more favorites up there more than I like him. So I think it's either going to be a low play for me on Rivas or even a fade. And then Cannetti, he's just more if you need to save money, maybe he's the last fighter you put in a lineup because you have $7,600 left on your salary, something like that. But yeah, this is a fight I kind of want to look to avoid. I don't trust either one of these guys. Hopefully it's just a boring fight.
So Dominick Reyes is taking on Jared Cannonier, and they're really hyping Reyes up to be the next light heavyweight prospect. Do you buy it?
He looks the part, that's for sure, but his opponents don't look the part. So that's the problem here. Here's going to be his best test with Cannonier. If he can get this one done, then yeah, I think he's in the mix for a title shot in the future. But yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this one works. Cannonier can put him out. If he does knock him out, he's really low priced at $7,200. So he's going to be kind of harder to fade at that price. But my pick is going to be Reyes here. I think he finds a way to get it done. And I'm interested in seeing how he gets it done. So I like this pick on Reyes quite a bit. Not sure how much I'll have in DraftKings, but I like him more than I like Cannonier in DraftKings as well.
So this weekend, the most contentious pick, the people's main event, Zach Cummings versus Michel Prazeres. Everyone is very strong in their opinions on which side they're going. So now I got to know, man, which side is Big Marley going with?
I wouldn't say this is my main event for the night. I like Luque and Laprise a little bit more myself, but for this one, I'm going to have to go with the size here and just take Cummings. I think Prazeres has gotten a lot of wins just because he's bigger and stronger than his opponent, not necessarily because he's more technical or better anywhere. It's just he's really been way bigger than everyone he's fought. He should be a 185er. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. But I'm going to pick Cummings. I think it could be back and forth, maybe a 29-28. So I don't see either one of them having a monster ceiling. So I think you can get away from this if you want to, but it is right there in the middle. And I think you kind of have to target those fights a little bit. So I prefer Cummings at $8,400. I think he does have the higher ceiling. But it is always scary picking against Tractor. He doesn't lose much.
So you mentioned Vicente Luque and Chad Laprise. I think it's an incredible matchup. I personally think Vicente Luque might be too big for him, but look, man, Chad Laprise's been performing at 170 pounds. So which way you going?
Yeah, I'm going to go Luque as well. I think he just has more ways to get it done. And on DraftKings, he's going to be the one trying to get it to the ground. So I think he has the higher ceiling in that way. But if this stays standing, it's going to be real interesting. And I think real fun. So I'm going to have both of these guys. I'm going to have some Laprise and some Luque. And I'm kind of just going to make my lineups around. Like, okay, I'm going to put this fighter in. I'm going to make sure I have one lineup with Luque. And then I'm going to have one lineup with him with Laprise as well, just in case. Like, let's say Suarez. I'm going to make sure I have one lineup with Suarez and Luque, and I'm going to have one lineup with Suarez and Laprise, just to be sure I have that fight in there, if that makes sense.
It makes 100% sense. Because, we got to hedge those bets from time to time, and I know my girl Rocky Pennington came through with 50 points last week. She was about, 6,700 or something, so I could literally get a bunch of the big favorites to score me big points, like, Jack Hermanson, Worley, Alves, and do the whole bit, and then I just threw in Rocky Pennington. She got me 50 points.
Wow, that's surprising. I didn't even look to see how many points she ended up scoring. That's more than I thought. I didn't have much or any of her, I think.
So, I know you remember when Brandon Moreno and Alexandre Pantoja threw down on Tough and was considered the fight of the season, but now, since that point, they both have had very successful UFC careers. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're both 3-1 in the UFC, so now someone's got to take that second loss. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, this is my other main event of the evening for myself. This is a good one to target both sides. It's right there in the middle, 8,200 versus 8,000. So you're going to have to target it if you're making multiple lineups. And I'm going to have both of them in lineups, that's for sure. I just am going to have more of Pantoja. I like him here. If it plays out like the first fight, then he's going to score a decent amount of points. Really, no matter who wins, they're going to score a decent amount of points. So that's why I like targeting it. But since we did see that first fight, I just kind of see it going pretty similar. Maybe he goes to a decision this time. But I expect a fun fight. Looking forward to it.
So before I let you go, man, one of the fights that's really flying under the radar is Enrique Barzola versus Brandon Davis. I mean, this kid Barzola, he's a consummate winner. He's a total professional. But Brandon Davis is very, very slick. I really enjoy watching him fight. Which way you going?
Yeah, if I was making one lineup, I think I'd probably just go ahead and throw Davis in it. Just because I like his pace. I think he does have a shot here to win. The only problem is he's going to have to keep it standing for the most part. And Barzola is a takedown machine. So it's another good fight to target both sides. I think the higher ceiling, though, would be Barzola. So he's more of the GPP play. But I think Davis is a solid punt for cash games. If you want to go down to that 7,300, he could get the job done. And I like him in both formats, but I like him in cash more and Barzola more in GPPs.
Well, Kyle, that's why you are the DraftKings guy for half the battle. Always appreciate the hard-hitting analysis. The fans can follow you at Big Marley 3. They can get at you at Big Marley 3 on DraftKings as well. And any message for them?
Nah, good luck this week. Let's get it done. Win some money.
Yes, sir. Kyle, we'll talk next week, my man.
All right, take care.
You too, brother.
And once again, that is why Kyle Marley is the DraftKings guy for half the battle, Shaq. We come out here, we cash these max bets almost every single week. And when we have a DraftKings portion of the show, we don't just get some scrub to come out here and give DraftKings advice. We got the best in the biz, Kyle Marley. Well, Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Chile?
My fight to watch is going to be Cummings versus Tractor Prazeres. I think that's the people's main event. I think that's clearly the fight with the most action on it. I mean, the back and forth action on that fight has been crazy. So there's going to be there's a lot of people that are looking to get that Des Green money back against Tractor, and there's a lot of people that like Zach Cummings, man. It's going to be an interesting fight, and like you said, Tractor wins pretty much every fight he's in. So that's the people's main event in my opinion. We're going to see how a 5'6" welterweight looks, and against a 6'1" gorilla. So that's my fight to watch.
Speaking of 5'6" welterweights, I know you remember that time my boy Matt Serra knocked out GSP.
Flukes happen from time to time.
My fight to watch is Alexandre Pantoja versus Brandon Moreno because, look, it was fight of the season when they fought on The Ultimate Fighter. Unbelievable finish by Alexandre Pantoja. A lot of people called it a comeback. I didn't think it was that. I thought it was a systematic dismantling. Since that point, Brandon Moreno, look, he was picked 16 on the show. And then he goes out there against Louis Smolka, against Ryan Benoit, against Dustin Ortiz, beats them all, has a 5-round fight with Sergio Perez. And Alexandre Pantoja, he's also been putting up numbers. He's also been winning UFC fights. Now they meet in Chile. They're both coming off their first UFC losses. It's going to be very, very exciting. That is my fight to watch. Now, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC Chile?
My fighter to watch is going to be Felipe Silva. I mean, don't sleep on that CM system camp down there in Parana, Brazil, because Zaleski's been putting in major work, and this is Zaleski's coach. So this guy can go out here, get his second UFC win, make Zaleski happy. You know, him and Zaleski are on FaceTime probably as we speak. You know, Zaleski's telling him Boa, Ermal, Iso. And I think it's a big moment for Felipe, Cristiano Marcelo, and that team. They've been doing really good things. And if he gets this one, there'll be a celebrating down there in Brazil.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, the fighter to watch is Dominick Reyes. I think light heavyweight's a division that, we need this upcoming star to emerge. We need, the next Johnny Bones Jones. We don't know who that's going to be. And this kid, Dominick Reyes, he's super huge for the weight class. He's got a very winnable task in front of him with Jared Cannonier. And if he can go out here, perform, get another finish under his resume, then we can talk about Dominick Reyes potentially going up there against the top 15, top 10 guys. So this is a big fight for Dominick Reyes, and for that reason, he is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, it's going down this Saturday, UFC Chile, max bet season. We're going to get the job done once again. And any message for them before we talk next week for Liverpool?
UFC Liverpool going down next week, and that's a big card as well. And the
return of the underdog.
Return of the underdog. And, guys, sign up. This is about to be one of the best stretches for money-making opportunities, that we got moving forward. It's a lot of easy money spots coming up. Join the ride as Best Fight Picks takes down Santiago, Chile. Like we said before, if you don't cash this weekend, you get the next 2 events free. Thanks for all the positive messages on Twitter, and we'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. Make sure you follow Shaq at MMA Genius 05. Follow me at Best Fight Picks. Go to bestfightpicks.com for the plays. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Our Instagram, Best Fight Picks Official. Follow that. Sign up to Best Fight Picks today because we're going to get the job done. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.